Good morning, everybody. A little bit late to start here, 11:30. Baltics, 10:30 Europe, 9:30 UK. So I'm saying in the title here, every time I wake up, in Eastern Europe in particular, when you miss most of the, when you're sleeping, most of the news in North America time, through nightly news and everything. And obviously, this shooting, murder, assassination of Charlie Kirk is unbelievable. I understand his daughter was there as he was murdered in cold blood. Absolutely tragic, absolutely terrible. Good morning, Midwest Picker. I don't know how any people, you're in the U.S. right now, right? Midwest Picker. I don't know how people are feeling over there in the U.S., but I mean, just the hysteria is continuing. It's really wild. It's really sad. It's unbelievably tragic. His children grew up without a father. All in the name of some political violence. Wake up yesterday to Poland drones coming into wake up yesterday with Russian drones coming into Polish airspace, right? Wake up this morning from a prominent conservative voice being gunned down in America on a campus. Shocking. Good morning, Rich. Good morning, Gio. Shocking. I wish that on no one. I've had some family tragedy when I was younger. My brother actually died when I was very young. Don't talk about personal stuff too much, but to go through that as a family is just absolute the pain and the pain and the suffering. It's unbearable at times. So just seeing what his family is going to have to go through now for the rest of their life, and then just the backlash that everybody knows coming as well is something that no one is looking forward to, I'm sure, in the U.S., certainly not here. Tragic. Absolutely tragic. I would wish that pain on no one. Seeing siblings tortured with grief, seeing parents tortured with grief. It's really, really tragic. It's tragic. Actually, for my own sanity, try to stay off Twitter mostly for, during these times. Certainly, no one knows what's happening with information, but you can already see the political wagons backing up. Republicans blaming it on leftists and something everybody's going to have to grapple with. But it's just it's so tragic to see that American dialogue is now coming back to this. You got to get to the bottom of it within the scope of the law. within the scope of the law. I've mentioned the night of the long knives a few times, right, on the stream, that I get really worried with a lot of the hysteria that's going on, that at some point you're just going to have sort of vigilante justice if people don't think that the regular justice system is doing the job. And that was really one of the first violent events in the Nazi time to kick off stuff. But again, I'm not, I don't even want to go like political. It's just people blaming the left, blaming the right out of this. It's tragic. No matter how strong his views were, or people would disagree with his views, you just can't call for violence like that. Good morning, Stuart. Good morning, Sandro. But yeah, I don't talk about personal stuff too much. But I've been through death in the immediate family, and it's tragic. And to imagine what his family is going through right now, and to what his children are going to have to grow up with. So it's kind of feels hard to talk about stuff after that, but I guess I'll try. I'm not, I think a lot of you guys know where I stand politically on a lot of stuff, and try to be more centrist about things, more grounded. It seems hysterical from where I'm sitting in the Baltics here, Middle East is on fire, got Russian drones coming into Poland. It's just a regular day for Ukraine, getting hit by Russian drones, and then conservative voice in America is gunned down. Unbelievable. I've even seen on Ukrainian side people, certainly not condoning the violence, certainly not whatever, certainly sympathizing with the family, but already saying, look, he was, I don't even know why you say these things at this point, but, just saying that he was super anti-Ukraine, super anti-American allies in Europe, all that stuff is just it's too much at this point. It's too much. Yeah, bring back the center ground. I mean, it's inevitable. I mean, the reactions seem inevitable, and I would encourage you guys to not get too bogged down in the social media landscape. Like I said, it's just, love your family, tell your family you love them, to wake up with them is a blessing, but to sort of, I don't know, go on like the keyboard warrior mode of, I'm seeing American crypto people saying this is war now, civil war. It's like, that's obviously the reaction that whoever is behind it is drumming up. It was clearly a professional hit. So you have to let the justice system work itself out. You have to be calmer in these situations. Can't have a night of long knives in America. But this is certainly, at least from what I can see, waking up. Obviously, this is going to be pretty consequential for things that happen. Certainly, nobody wants his death to be in vain. I don't know. It's just my thoughts this morning. I think a lot of you guys that follow me agree with me on a lot of this stuff. Certainly not always. Don't have to on everything, but seriously sad for everyone involved, for his family, for his children, his wife. Having said that, I can try to move into topics that I usually talk about. Don't talk about geopolitics too much. Don't talk about culture, warrior mentalities too much, but I'll let other people talk about that. So anyway, let's talk about this chart. Pretty consequential, global stuff. I always try to be transparent about the numbers that I provide and everything. So, some of this data I get sort of more in depth myself. Some I take now more macro from like IMF, World Bank. In the interest of this liabilities versus assets, counting up the liabilities is easier than valuing the assets. If you take out the public markets and we take out the money supply, even here I expanded the government debt a little bit. You remember it's closer to 90 trillion. I searched through some World Bank numbers. They have more countries, so I added it up. It's over 100 trillion now, close to 110 trillion. I'm going to keep refining it, basically. It's not necessarily easy. But one interesting thing that I was thinking about when you look at these, if you try to match liabilities and assets, so the government balance sheet, non-financial corporate balance sheet, like the real economy, companies that are not involved in finance, and household balance sheet. There's a combination of these numbers from the IMF and from World Bank. I'm still probably not counting up enough. There's still some holes, just based on another data set, which I'll show you here in a second. So if you count this up, you're at like 240 trillion, right? Roughly 240 trillion right now. But what that does not include is financial debt. All right, so the debt of the financial system. Now, I have included the money supply just as that's like the main liability of the financial system. But the money supply is kind of a sui generis thing, right? It's people that trade around monetary liabilities are usually heavily regulated and have a charter, and the rest of us can't do it. But what you might have been thinking, which is correct, and I was also thinking it, is, for a lot of these liabilities in the financial system, they're going to hold assets, which are actually our debt outside of the financial system, which are these. So there's kind of an overlap here. So I went to, one of the sources that I was tracking for a while myself was this. It's a global International Institute of Finance. They count 324 trillion in May. And I'll show you the breakdown here. Here's the breakdown. I need to go. I need to go back. It's very spotty to find this data. I got to go back to September 2022. International Institute of Finance. All these numbers are smaller than I have, but they got the same household, non-financial corporates, like the real economy, companies not involved in finance, the government, and then financial corporates. So financial corporates are here. It's about 70 trillion in debt. That is correct. I would agree with that. So it's basically, it's a subset of the money supply, but drilling down to it, you'd have to get into it. And they're probably not even counting the money supply. They're counting like debts of money. Some of the money supply is counted here. So some of this green is counted. What you probably would not count is deposits, saving deposits, checking deposits. Uh, that's just a sui generis good that only banks can do. But of course, a big portion of those deposits go into fund other debt. So I think it's correct not to count that big portion, but only a small portion, which either you look at it on the asset side, what they hold in reserve of their demand deposits, or just count up all their other loans. So point is, I don't have the full data, and I'm probably overcounting it now as of March. So we can do the totals again. I have to add it because it's a weird chart, but I got 399 trillion. All right. And if we go back to here, right, in May, they were 324 trillion. And I think they're more accurate than me. So, and I don't have a good financial corporate debt series anywhere. I'll have to keep finding it, but they have gotten it. They have gone into the balance sheets of banks and stuff and counted financial debt. So this makes it too much. In fact, global debt, you need to have even less of the money supply. It's a good guide. It's something to look at, but there's overlap basically, because a big portion of those deposits get lent out, which is represented by an asset on the balance sheet. So it's better to just look at pure debt that a bank might have to increase its operations. Anyway, I just try to be transparent on this stuff for when I work through it. It's not a bad way to look at it, but this overstates the debt of the financial system, in fact. Also shows you how kind of wild finance is, right? What would be more interesting, actually, because this is the money that, the financial system's liability is our asset. So I could actually take this money supply, put it on the asset side up here, just like I have silver, gold, and Bitcoin. I've actually done that on prior charts, but so I can just put it up there. But then to plug the gap to get to this number here of 70 trillion, I just don't have it. I could use theirs, but it's not as often published. So another little here's the Institute of International Finance. So I can tell you guys I'm never going to do an account sign in or subscription. Do you guys really need one more subscription to get on a website to see charts? The easiest way for me to do it is just show these videos. So anyway, it's a work in progress. We're roughly around, if you count the stock markets, we're roughly going to be 450 trillion in global balance sheet. All right, if you want to think about that, 450 trillion. It's too much here. I'll put this on an asset actually later, and then somehow I need to get in financial debt rolled into this stack down here, but I don't have that data. If I signed up for the Institute of International Finance, perhaps I could find it, but then I'd have to do a bunch of nonsense. So that's the stack. Bitcoin remains super small. Feels weird just keep talking about Bitcoin and charts when you got just the moral compass of the world just crumbling. I don't need to lecture anymore today, so I don't know if you guys have any thoughts. Sure, we have it. Let me pull it up. The main thing with gold right now is it's screaming in value. So it's actually, if you look at Bitcoin in terms of gold ounces, it's quite low, historically low, and lower than, you know, than the price in dollars. Pulling it up here. So here's gold. We'll go back to dollars to show you, but these are never happening again, probably. There's your bands. Remember, we did parity in the year 2017. 1 Bitcoin equaled 1 gold. The price was like $1,500 or something, $1,700. I don't remember. And then gold continued to be worth less in terms of Bitcoin, right? This is in ounces. So look at all these ounces that it takes now to buy 1 Bitcoin. And similarly to all crises, or sorry, all booms before, Bitcoin in gold went over this 90th percentile. But now it doesn't even seem like there is a cycle. It's pretty wild. Gold has really caught up to Bitcoin. So what I have been saying is, if you had gold and you were sort of following Peter Schiff for all these years, but you thought it was maybe time to lighten up, it would still be a good time to do so. It's still very cheap in terms of it's still very cheap in terms of the regressions, but it's still quite expensive, wildly, compared to, even 8 years ago. 8 years ago, we just went 1-to-1. Now it's still 34 ounces of gold to 1 Bitcoin. So it's kind of a weird thing, Again, I have no idea where gold's going. I have some idea with Bitcoin with these percentiles, but yeah, Bitcoin is undervalued relative to gold, relative to where we are in the dollar space. I'll show up the dollar here in a second. No problem. Midwest picker, no problem. Yeah. Just the amount of hate seems unbelievably high. In the social media world right now. So here we are, right on trend. As I've said, really not worrying me. I know it worries a lot of other people, but today's September 11th, 114 into the model. Back up above trend, at least as of today. Did we finish above it yesterday? Yes, we did. A slightly positive day on the model. Why can't I get... Yeah, there we go. So it's also a super bullish thing about this whole model in general, as I keep saying, is every day that we finish above that black line makes it sort of stronger and stronger that's not resistance, but or not support. Although some people look at the power curve as support, but just as a baseline, as a really good baseline, and it will keep edging higher and higher, ever so slightly, each day that the price is above the black line. Let me know if you guys want to see something else. Not focusing on the sadness in the U.S., but more of the anger from us in Europe. Here's a brazenly and on Twitter, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Russia quoting drunken Dima Medvedev. The Finnish establishment mustn't forget confrontation with Russia can lead to a collapsed Finnish statehood, this time forever. Unlike in 1944, no one will go soft on them this time. Not even mentioning the Winter War itself, of course. It's just unbelievable. You know, my dad always told me what sort of a hysteria it might be to live through the 1930s. And it's just, you have governments now openly calling for the destruction of nations, brazenly on Twitter. I remember, the first months of this war, these people were completely isolated in the cold. You know, they would try to say stupid things like, oh, the, Russians in Estonia or Russians in Latvia are being prejudiced, just like the Russians in Donetsk and Lugansk. And of course, Russians in Estonia and Russians in Latvia were literally trolling this agency in Russia, saying, we're not oppressed at all, we live much better than you, so on and so forth. It's hard to know where this stuff goes. I don't have much sympathy for the authoritarianism of either, but I'm super glad Germany's on our side this time. Yeah. Okay, that's who we're quoting. Got it. His quote about the Russian drunk as well was a good one. The Russians just basically being drunk and not being good fighters. But I know it's like we're sleepwalking into conflict. Yep. I feel like it's a lot politically right now to say anything about, I don't know, people's views on the right on that issue or people's views on the left. But I will say generally, that was interesting to be such a catalyst for people on the right. And yet she was a Ukrainian refugee. And yet everybody on the right, not, I shouldn't say everybody on the right. Shouldn't say that at all, but a lot of people on the right were, completely anti-Ukraine support, anti-refugee. I don't know. It's just a mad world. It's a mad world. And I can tell you, like, there is no moral ambiguity in my mind. Like, the authoritarian governments, the ones that don't have to answer to people in elections, they're very happy to see this chaos, this discontent, this anger, people calling for war. There are plenty of people that would love to see a civil war in the U.S. over this. When it's not, as the Republicans were saying, it's not the enemy within. It's just, there's clear enemies abroad. There might be a lot of problems within, but to turn the guns inward is also extremely dangerous right now. I did not. Good morning, Ansi. 1 billion Bitcoin by 2038. All right, let's go out. Let's go out and look at that. Who is this? Let me go. I'm finding it, Ansi. 1 second. Easier on the mind to look at price trends than talk politics this morning, that's for sure. Damn, where is it? Getting too many charts now. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. Who's Metro? Sorry, Gio. I'm out of the loop on a lot of social media stuff. I'm not really following, except, if you turn on something like this after an event like this, it's wild. Oh, yeah, of course. I'm sorry. Yes. The person that killed this Ukrainian white girl, yeah. I mean, again, tragic and terrible and awful and strange to me that somehow the Ukrainian refugee is getting sympathy after no sympathy before. But yes, you got unhealthy people being let out of jail many, many times and doing crazy things. It's just the American way of life right now is looking just demented. So let's just look at the power and exponential, which is not going to happen, but it's a good one. So if you said 2038, if that's what they said, oh, that's rich. That's rich. What did the stock to flows say? Let's look at power trend on stock to flow. It's not even that high. I have no idea how they could get to 1 billion. So Bitcoin going exponential, which could happen, but I don't see it happening, would get you to like some crazy numbers, right? 20 billion. That's 20 billion per coin is projected based on all-time data through today, September 11th, 2025. But the power trend predicts 3 million. Again, statistical term. I have no idea what it's going to actually be. So yeah, it's a big delta, isn't it? And even the stock to flow, which is way optimistic always, is 134 million, 135 million. None of us are going to be disappointed with these prices, obviously, but um, oh, God bless it. I don't know, guys. You know what I used to think living over here in Europe, which was always a nice thing, is not to just be a basher on Twitter speak, but you know, the American market of Twitter is pretty big, and usually when you get to the evening prime time hours in the U.S., I'm sleeping. We all are sleeping here in Eastern Europe, so I'd always enjoy that and just completely turn it off and not worry about it. And we had Bitcoin to uh, do a lot of financial planning around, and now you could almost ignore geopolitics, right? And now we have drones, Russian drones, going into Polish space, which again, like, why anybody in Europe should be surprised at this after nearly 4 years of war, actual war. Um, you know, has Europe woken up? And when I say Europe, I really mean Western Europe. Has they woken up to the threat? Now, I genuinely am a little bit nervous going to bed in the evenings. Of course, it's a regular occurrence for Ukrainians. They get shot by hundreds of drones a night. And now we got massive political violence, you know, occurring in the U.S. Anyway, I'm sorry to be a downer. I don't really know what else to, you know, not really sure what the proper chat is about this stuff. When in doubt, betting on Bitcoin is always good. But it's also good to check ourselves, right? So I don't know, 1 billion, I'll look at it, honestly. I'm not really concerned, but um, that seems pretty rich. It's like really rich to me. You're getting very close to exponential type projecting, and Bitcoin is just not doing that, in my view, at all. Good morning, Siradon. You think the cycles are dead? Are you speaking economically or politically, or both? I'll come back to you, Siradon, on your cycle chat, but yeah, I mean they're signaling to the world, specifically to the Americans, that they don't care what they say, what they do. And the wild thing is that what I think a lot of the American appeasers, usually now on the right, yeah, I'm not a warmonger, but the American appeasers sort of Putin, the Russians have never claimed once that they're going to stop the war if they get the U.S. to recognize Crimea. That's not. They've never once claimed that. That's not what they're doing. They smell weakness. They taste blood. Lives, labor, homes. They will come for more. Yeah, I do think the fourth turning is probably a general, Joe Rogan talks about this kind of, right? This hard men make good times make soft men make hard times, and that repeats. And I think, I haven't read all the literature on the cycles, but, you get something that turns out to be 3 generations. Um, I don't exactly know, how that could play out this time. Where is this? Sorry, 1 second. Always having trouble finding it. What I do feel pretty strongly about, and we're going to see how this plays out by the end of the year, but I actually feel pretty strongly that Bitcoin is not correlated to this idea at all. Like, this is sort of real economy stuff, like just these massive levels of debt, even massive levels of equity, as we talked about, right? Which are super volatile, more volatile than Bitcoin. There's Bitcoin compared to the global stock market. This is according to the World Federation of Exchanges, which I need to put in the source. But anyway. There is a sort of wait and see mode to see if, like, the power curve will really project out the growth that we think, right? Um, everybody's going to be happy as a Bitcoiner when we get to 1 million 8 years from now. Get to 10 million 20 years from now. These are huge market caps, by the way. We're passing, global money and all these money supplies. But as for right now, I actually don't think it has much to do with the global markets. I know it's true to say that the adoption of Bitcoin in Wall Street has probably made it less volatile at the moment. But this stuff is moving on tremendously without anybody even thinking about Bitcoin. Okay, yeah, most people have heard of Bitcoin, but it's 450, $500 trillion of global market value just sloshing around the system every day. And then the other thing I wanted to show you, Rich, which is weird, is if we look, now we can zoom in. The U.S. is an interesting case because it came global money like here, right? Massive amounts of debt. Less sort of debt here, though still went up by, what was the factor? 5. U.S. had $3 billion, $4 billion worth of debt, billion, when they entered World War I, and then they finished it at 27, so 5-6 times higher. Here, 48. This is 10, right? No, it's also 5-6 actually. Let's just do it here. Yeah, 5-6. So the factor is actually the same of debt increase. But I've never. This is actually something one of the things I agree with Murray Rothbard. Like, these generations were very close to each other, and they still did 2 crazy wars. So it doesn't fully explain the full cycles. I don't know. I think war can happen anytime. I think it can happen any place. I think it's super serious. And there's a narrative around there that sort of, I think, really appeals to gold bugs. We talk about this fourth turning. You know, every decade has more technology, has different stuff. Anyway, I don't want to go belabor the point. I'm not exactly sure what I'm saying, but other than I'm not too concerned with the idea of like fourth turning really hurting the West or us getting into a prolonged Cold War. Those things might happen anyway. The meme going around is that Bitcoin adoption follows the power trend, but that fiat can have exponential drops in value, so the power trend is best when measured by a denominator not melting. Meaning gold. Huh. Okay. I'll check that out. Thank you, Sandro. Yeah, that's another thing. That's another thing that makes me feel very good about Bitcoin is they still think it's tulips. They think it's, you know, just speculation after speculation. No word from me. We'll see in the way that the code is run. That was always the big giveaway for the first block size war. Second. So it is very big, very impressive, actually, what Knots is doing. Yeah, I'm generally just going to stick with the core view, even though I know there's a lot of people that vehemently disagree with that. This is a great site if you guys don't know it. It's coin.dance. They came online about when the old block size debate was going on. So here we got Bitcore nodes. Where's Bitcoin Classic? This is nodes that were going to USAF, which was fine. Bitcoin Unlimited got up to like 1K. But if you looked at that as a proportion of core, it was still usually pretty small, 10%, whatever. Now it is true, Knots is way up. What's the latest? 4.5. $19. That's 20. 23%. Certainly impressive what they are doing. Yeah, if you looked at it as a 23% would be versus core itself, but versus the total would be only 19%, which is here. It says 19%. You can't see it from my face. 80.63%. So honestly, I don't have more thoughts than that. I mean, it's interesting to see the arguments, the debates, but I'm going to try not to get too carried away on this at the moment. But yeah, you can see the history of different nodes. Sometimes they would get pretty high. I don't think probably anything has gotten as high as Knots has right now as a percentage of the total. I guess here's a good one. Coin.dance is this site. So 19% does, still seems like a pretty small minority at the moment. Definitely not insignificant. If you looked at this Bitcoin Classic, yeah, it was one of the first implementations of larger blocks. Two divided by 7 would be their peak. 28%. Okay, so Bitcoin Classic was the biggest bunch, and it topped out in mid 2016. That was the biggest bunch of nodes that competed with Bitcoin Core. That's 28% of the total. So 2 divided by 7, roughly. So Knots has not reached that yet. Yeah, it's just one data point. I'm not claiming I know the answers to how to solve all the spam issues, but I'm a big fan of Adam Back and Peter Todd generally, but it's not like, people are going to run what they want to run. So you have to see. Yeah. I mean, totally, total bullish signal. Yeah. So if you go back to this chart, which is also helpful, right? Bitcoin versus the money supply globally, somewhere maybe 160 trillion. This includes my M3, by the way, which is more aggressive. It's larger than other ones you'll find, and by the way, the data should be published today, updated. So tomorrow I'll try to have this updated for you guys on up to second quarter. Very lagging indicator, money supply. But the broadest money supply, repurchase agreements, money market funds, all types of deposits, 164 trillion. Bitcoin, 1.6 trillion from March. So there's no other way to say that than that's underowned compared to what people think of as money. And again, if you look at that ratio, right, so it's 1%. This is all what I keep saying is that if it's 1% owned as far as money goes, then all this stuff, economics, debt, politics, I don't think it actually affects the price as much as the trend line growth itself. It's super powerful. I'm at a loss for words, guys. I don't know what else you want me to say, if I should say anything. Super sad days. I can tell you I fear the backlash in every way. But I'm certainly, as far as as the Kirk family and friends, very sad for them. It's not how we should settle political disputes, settle political disputes like this. There's a big delta here with Bitcoin Unlimited. It's still only 10%. This was the biggest shot before, until now. As 28% of nodes was Bitcoin Classic. And now we're at 19% is not. I kind of liken, it's nice, running nodes versus the money supply, right? Maybe I have sort of too much faith. Don't trust, verify, but Bitcoin has battled these sort of internal politicking before. We seem super early here, super early. The United States, China, the Eurozone nations, Japan and Great Britain would make up 116%. 116 trillion of that total, 164. So, and I have to caution again, I haven't fully vetted that, but that's only 70%. I expected it to be more, but at least that's what the IMF is spitting out to me as far as global money supply goes, broadest money. You know, 40 to 50 trillion from the smaller currencies around the world. Which does seem high to me, but I'll keep trying to drill down on it. Thanks for are you talking about Midwest Pickers comment or mine being public? Yes, agree with you very much, Casa Murphy, very much about that point. I'll try to keep tracking it, but they're definitely buying a lot, and that means more gold coming onto the market. Yeah. You know, I started fairly pseudonymous, not using my name. Maybe I should have remained that way, but no words today, guys. No words. I feel super sad for my American friends, Charlie Kirk's family, all Ukrainians, as typical. It's like every other day that it's every day that Ukrainians are shot up by drones in the night. Somehow we just need humanity to come back. And I certainly fear that somehow people think that war is a better answer here. Sorry, guys. I don't know, just could be. You have one? Send it over. With some coffee, as you say. You like that one that we did yesterday? You have to send it again, frankly. I already remember it was an Indian anti-colonial writer. Yeah, Jason J. Smart is a very good focused person there. It's really tough. You know, I sort of try to balance it. Like, you can tell with videos like Jason's, his daily videos, that he's very on point, but I almost worry that it's almost on the point of like, okay, this is maybe too optimistic as far as Russia losing, but it also, like you said, it's sometimes you need that in war. Let me go with 1 Corinthian instead of the anti-colonial for now, Geo. If I speak in the tongues of men or angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part, but when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, that I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. I'm going to have to start writing these down. I also like what you say at the beginning, Gio. Might have to end it here. Death leaves a heartache no one can heal. Love leaves a memory no one can steal. Very tough days, guys. I appreciate you all coming here. Only the best to you and your families. Hoping for people to stay sane. It's the blowback that I fear from both sides of the political aisle, all while Europe is sort of dithering in the face of war. Yeah, it's amazing. So many volunteers, so many heroic people fighting, dying in Ukraine to protect them from the authoritarianism that is trying to roll over their country. Wishing you guys all the best. I already saw it mentioned a few times, you know. Hug your families, say you love your families. Thank you for joining me. I fear it's going to get darker before the dawn. And I will keep letting you know how it's going over here. Take care, everybody. Have a good day.